You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
I don't see her yet. 5:45.
All right.
Peter and Lindsay, and I know of.
All right. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The RTM will be convened on Wednesday, April 13, 2022, at 8 p.m. at the Branford Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, to consider and act upon the following matters. Will we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great.
Okay, item number 1, roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Representative Alphone.
Present.
Representative Amore.
Here.
Representative Anderson.
Here.
Representative Barron.
Here.
Representative Black.
I'll wait for the Zoom to come back, and then I'll tell you he's here.
Oh, he's on Zoom, okay.
The internet just dropped.
Okay, thanks.
Switching to my hotspot.
Representative Beinberger. Representative Brooks. Representative Conklin.
Here.
Representative Everson.
Here.
Representative Erlanger.
Here.
Representative Flanagan.
Present.
Representative Greenberg.
She's present online,
Online. Thank you.
so there's Representative Black.
Thank you. Representative Healy.
Present.
Representative Henschel.
Present.
Representative Hines.
Here.
Representative Ingraham.
Here?
Representative Kelly. Representative Leach is present. Representative Maresca.
Here.
Representative Preet.
Here.
Representative Ricchio.
Not online.
No. Okay. Representative Shrestha.
Present.
Representative Sires.
Present.
Representative Stepanik.
Here.
Representative Sullivan.
Here.
Representative Torelli. You on Zoom yet? Ray?
Nope.
No?
Not yet.
Okay,
I'll let you know if she's
thank you. Representative Toohill.
here.
Representative Verderame.
Here.
Representative Witkowski.
Here.
Representative Wells.
Here.
Ex officios, I see Clerk Arpin, I see Selectman Cosgrove.
Yep.
I see Town Attorney Yanukovych. I see Tax Collector Imperato.
And Selectman
And
Higgins is on.
Selectman Higgins is on there
Higgins
also.
is on Zoom. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, good. All right. Item number 2, approval of the minutes of the March 15th, 2022 meeting. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes.
I believe our meeting was on March 9th, not
March 9th?
15th. Yes. So that would be a correction.
That would be a correction, absolutely. Okay, any other corrections to the approval of the minutes as amended? Hearing none, all those signifying by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved. The minutes are approved as amended. Item number 3, reception of communications, reports of committees, and citizens' petitions. I have here a letter from Robert Imperaro, Chairman of the Branford Housing Authority. Dear Moderator Flanagan and RTM members, as you know, the Parkside Village 1 redevelopment has received all necessary land use approvals, as well as the financing committed for the Connecticut Department of Housing and the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority. Among other private and public funding sources, documents to approve the boundary line adjustment to benefit Sliney Park, as well as public safety plans, recreational easements, and other documents have all been approved. The Planning and Zoning Commission April's 2021 resolution, Condition 2C, requires execution of a construction and temporary access easement and agreement. The temporary access agreement to allow the temporary use of the town property for construction-related purposes, including the widening and improving of Slaney Road. The temporary access agreement will terminate when construction is complete. While we understand that the temporary access agreement required only by the Board of Selectmen approval, this week the town requested that the Housing Authority also present the temporary access agreement for full RTM approval. The Board of Selectmen unanimously approved the temporary access agreement, subject to the RTM approval during its March 23, 2022 meeting. The temporary access agreement is attached and is an FAQ that answers any questions people may have about the temporary access agreement. As suggested by the town attorney, the Housing Authority looks forward to the Administrative Services Committee taking this up request on April 5th, with the RTM confirmation following on April 13th. We will be available to discuss and resolve any questions. Signed by Robert Imperato, Chair. I also have one here to celebrate Earth Day 2022, Saturday, April 23rd, 9 a.m. to noon. Rain date Sunday, April 24th, noon to 3 p.m. Spring into action. An Earth Day fair on the Branford Green. Activities for the kids, exhibits, giveaways. Explore how we are all helping our planet and how we can do more to live sustainably. More details and livewise and well organized. Also, it's the annual Branford Cleanup Day. Volunteers questions. Heather's Sweeney at gmail.com. Bring your collections to the dumpster on the green and enjoy the fair. And that's all I have. No, that's it. Okay, that's it under communications and petitions. Moving on to item 4, to consider and take action on a request with respect to the Branford Housing Authority's temporary access agreement with the town of Branford for Parkside Village 1, Sliney Road. Representative Werner M.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The item before us is a construction and temporary access agreement between the Branford Housing Authority and the town of Branford. The item passed the committee on a bipartisan vote with 6 in favor and 1 abstention after a lengthy discussion, and I move passage. The agreement has been approved by the Board of Selectmen unanimously and is subject to RTM approval under Section 73-3 of the Town Code. The agreement grants to the Housing Authority a temporary construction easement over a small portion of land owned by the town that will permit passage to and from the area on which the new Parkside 1 housing development will be built. The easement will expire upon the completion of the improvements to Sliney Road and the issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the town. During the committee deliberations, the following information was presented by the Housing Authority. The easement is for passage to and from the construction site and not for the staging of construction equipment, and the area is currently used as a passway by the public and Parkside residents. The maintenance agreement, evacuation agreement, and traffic management plan all require Sliney Road to be open 24/7 during construction. There will be no impact to or work done on Melrose Avenue. The grassy area where informal parking occurs during sports activities is not impacted by this easement. And Parkside is obligated by the maintenance agreement to repair any damage done to town property and or Sliney Road during this construction. Mr. Moderator, for these reasons, I move a favorable vote. Thank you.
All right. You heard the committee report and the motion to approve. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Sires?
Yes, I'm changing my vote to a no vote, and the reason I'm doing it is this has nothing to do with the project at all, but to me it looks like Branford taxpayers are sharing some of the cost of the redevelopment of the project. First accepting a tax-free project from a for-profit development and now offering the use of town property without written consequences of the condition of who is going to be responsible at the end of it. So this is specifically based in favor of taxpayers, where some money should have been approved for the taxpayers for a multi-million-dollar for-profit company. And I'm just changing my vote to a no vote based in support of the taxpayers of Branford. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public? Mr. Petrowski?
That's all one.
Microphone.
I was gonna have this,
There's one up there, Don.
Oh, there is one.
There's one on the table.
sorry, these were supposed to be handed out to admin services, so I don't have enough copies
You know what?
for everybody, so it's nothing personal.
Can we share?
Yeah. I'll just pass that back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give them all out, I don't have one for myself. Basically what that says, and I'm sorry, this is kind of about the easement, is if you turn to page 3, under Commissioners, and this is backed up by Department of Housing, Mr. Imparato is ineligible to serve on the Housing Authority Committee, period, due to his being the tax collector. You could read it right there. So for the past 4 months, all these presentations came from an ineligible chairman and an ineligible commissioner. So I don't know if Mr. Cosgrove wants to address that, seeing he does the appointing of that board. But there it is, right from the state of Connecticut. Feel free to read it. So I don't know what this means for your past votes, seeing that he never took any votes from his own commission. He came here unilaterally. And pretty much what happened last month was you had the tax collector dealing for a for-profit company for a tax abatement. He's not even supposed to be on the board since he took office as tax collector. So it seems like we got a little bit of a problem here. Maybe through you, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Cosgrove may want to clarify what's going on here. Because I think I'm sure you guys want to know why you're listening to an ineligible person giving presentations and...
Any Selectman Cosgrove or Town Attorney Aniskovich, anybody wishing to comment on that?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have the document that was passed out, and it was passed out to everyone else, but...
I'm sorry, I wasn't done it intentionally.
I'm not sure which Mr. Petrowski is referring to. However, I will say, tonight before you is the approval of a easement, which I don't believe this was part of the development agreement and part of the approval for planning and zoning. That is what's before you. I will review the document that Mr. Petrowski has handed to the body. Mr. Imparato was appointed prior to being elected tax collector, but I will review and see where that stands.
No, I understand all that, but just says you cannot hold public office and be on the housing authority. Remember, this is a state of Connecticut board. That's state of Connecticut law. So, we're a law-abiding town here. We don't break any rules, so, and I'm sorry for bringing this up now, I know it's about the abatement, but if I waited for other business, it would be too late. But my other concern is the past votes that have taken place and been presented by a person that's not eligible to be on the committee. So it would be like me coming here and saying I represent the Parks and Open Space Board and do a presentation and have you guys vote on it, say yes, and I'm not even legally part of that board. I mean, that's the truth. There it is. I mean, that's, and I've handed this out previously to Minority Leader Everson, and we both kind of agreed that that's legit. It's from the state, and I mean, my only concern is you guys voted on things that, one, weren't even, I mean, the tax abatement, I know this is not supposed to be discussed here, but he blatantly lied to you guys and the Admin Services Board. I have the recording of the past meeting, Even their lawyer,
right.
Attorney Lamar, said they did it the wrong way,
Mr.
and it never
Petrowski,
came to a vote.
Let's stick to the item on the agenda, okay? We're talking about the temporary easement for Slaney Road right now.
Okay?
Okay?
All right. No, I understand that, and I apologize, but what I'm saying is you're listening to a presentation from somebody that shouldn't be there. That's my problem. So if he wants to present here and say the housing authority needs this, he's not a member. He can't be a member as of right now. So shouldn't any of this be kind of void and tabled till maybe somebody that is on the housing authority comes here, or Mr. Cosgrove figures it out, seeing this was presented by him at Adjournment Services, and also the planning and zoning and whatever other meeting? That's my issue. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I mean, the easement, great, who cares? But I'm just saying, you're just, then I'll leave you guys
Well,
figure it
yeah.
out. I mean, there it is in black and
I
white.
think- I
You don't
think-
have to take my word, that's the Connecticut
Yeah.
law, not
I think
the UK law.
we'll proceed with what the administrative services dealt with on this. And anyone else wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public? Represent.
Sorry, I have a question. I know Representative Sires, you made a statement you wanted to change your vote to a no vote. We haven't voted yet, so I'm wondering, do you mean the committee?
Committee, she's talking about the committee.
Committee vote, okay.
Thank
Just
you.
want to make sure. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak? Representative, I'll go with Amari, Representative Amari first.
In regards to the easement, this did not require a new vote in the Housing Authority. It was part of the resolution from Planning and Zoning, I believe, from 2019.
Okay. Representative Everson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The information that Mr. Petrowski has brought to my attention, and now the RTM, is troubling, but I'm no attorney. I don't know if this opens up the town to potential litigation, or someone could try to change these votes, or what, but it's troubling that this has not come to light before now, because it clearly states in this that no commissioner of a housing authority can hold public office in that same municipality for which the authority is created. So I would hope that there'd be some further discussion of this and potentially a remedy. Thank you.
Town Attorney Scobich, any comment on this?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bill Aniscoach, Brenner, Saltzman, and Walnut. Two things. The document that you were handed is actually not a copy of the general statutes. It's an Office of Legislative Research report that paraphrases Section 8-41 of the Connecticut General Statutes. To the extent that the town would like us to take a look at whether or not and how that statute applies to this case, we'd be happy to do that, number one. Number two, there are two separate questions that are raised by this OLR report. The first is whether or not the current chairman of the Housing Authority may, by law, serve as the tax collector. The second, and separate, while somewhat related question, is whether or not his presence on the Housing Authority somehow invalidates an action of the legislative body. Again, I would be happy to look at that question, but I think it's incredibly important for you to keep the two separate because the answers might not be the same at number one. Number two, I think Representative Amore rightly points out that the application pursuant to which a resolution was passed, pursuant to which this item and the other items that have come before you were before you, was voted on many years ago prior to most of the members of the Housing Authority being appointed. And we actually addressed that issue at the Administrative Services Committee. So I think again, I'd be happy to take a look at the actual statute to see whether or not there are cases that interpret it. But I do think it's important for you to separate the two questions. And for purposes of your actions as the legislative body, I at this point wouldn't be able to speculate that there would be an impact, an adverse impact on what you're doing. That is separate and apart from whether or not this statute, as applied, allows the current chairman to remain in his position, if that is helpful and makes sense.
Representative Wells?
I'd like to make a motion to table this agenda item until the next meeting, until we can clarify all of this.
Motion on the floor to table this item by Representative Brooks.
I'm not going to second, but I have a comment.
We have to wait for a second.
And there hasn't been a second, so I think it's important that we move. I think it's important, listening to what the town attorney Anaskova says, I think it's important that we move forward with this and either vote it up or down.
That Representative Black second.
Representative Black?
He seconded it.
He seconded it.
He seconded it, Dennis.
Oh, he seconded
He
that?
seconded it, yeah.
Peter Black, second.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear that. Okay, there's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded to table this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Wait a minute. I'm going to get into discussion in 1 second. I'm just gonna,
You have to discuss the
right, I understand it.
But you're about to ask for a vote.
No, I'm asking, is there any further discussion on this?
Okay.
Okay. Now you can raise your hand.
Well, my hand is
Go ahead.
I mean, the idea to table this because an individual brought us something that is completely verified. And by the way, if I gave you a presentation, all right, well, let's take me out of here. But if you know, a homeless man came here and gave us a presentation about the merits of tractors versus fire trucks when it came to buying a fire truck for the fire department, that doesn't negate whether or not we vote on it. It doesn't matter who gives the presentation. It's the body, it's the information. That person is just disseminating information. So getting that information, whether he should be or should not be on the board, doesn't change. We're just getting information from them. That has nothing, what the housing authority does has nothing to do with this body making its votes. We're making our votes based on information we receive. It doesn't matter who gives that information. It doesn't change what we're voting on. Legitimate or not legitimate on his in that position has nothing to do with, that's just a presentation. His presentation isn't a legal binding thing. It's just presentation. He could lie to us about everything he says. But it's still, we vote is what matters.
Representative Ingraham?
I'm speaking not in favor of tabling the item. We should vote on it tonight. Decisions on this were made years ago. Whether or not the chairman should be on that committee any longer because of the results of election can be decided at the board that decides that, which is the Board of Selectmen. Nothing to me has been negated by testimony given to us by the chair or any other of the members at their meetings.
Representative Henschel? Representative Henschel?
Yes, I'm going to vote no to the motion to table this. I agree with both Representative Abraham and Brooks that I can see my way to separating these two issues very clearly. I think that who delivered this to us as a request is independent of the request itself. I am troubled by the possible revelation that maybe our tax collector might be serving in one or the other of the two positions, but I think that could be resolved separately. And I would definitely propose that we go ahead and vote on this tonight and vote positively for it.
Okay, Representative Sullivan?
Thank you. I'm going to stand up because I thought that's what we did when we spoke, so I'll do that.
Not in April.
What?
Not in April.
Where's that from? But I'm actually standing in opposition to the motion to table. As we've heard, this vote that we're voting on is based on things that happened years ago before the individual that had questions raised tonight was on the board. So I think it's fine to vote on this tonight. But also the procedural wonk in me also is voting against it because I don't think the motion to table is the appropriate motion. It would be a motion to postpone definitely to the date that you set, which would be next meeting. So the tabling vote would not be what I would vote for anyway. So thank you.
Representative Maury?
Yes, I think if there's, I think the direction to separate these issues is critical, and I would not support tabling or postponing of any kind of vote. If there's a concern that a vote taken at to bring this to this body is invalid, that is not a concern because the votes were taken long before, as Attorney Yanukovych said, 4 of the 5 commissioners were on the board. So it will not affect this vote in any way.
Thank you. Anyone else from the RTM wishes to speak? All right. There's a motion on the floor to table this item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against?
No.
Motion is defeated. We're back to the main motion to approve. Any further discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. A yes vote is in favor of the temporary easement, temporary access agreement on Sliney Road. A no vote, you're against.
Representative Alphone.
Representative Alphone voting yes.
Representative Amore.
Yes.
Representative Anderson.
Yes.
Representative Barron.
Yes.
Representative Black.
Representative Black?
Representative Black votes no.
No.
Representative Bonenberger.
Representative
Got it,
Bonenberger votes
Peter.
yes.
Okay.
Separate conversation.
Okay, I was.
The people
I
on the
thought-
phone can't hear me.
I thought he changed his vote.
I'm relaying it from.
Yeah.
Representative Brooks.
Yes.
Representative Conklin.
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Thank you. Representative Everson.
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger.
Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Representative
I
Green.
can't hear that really well.
Well, I'll let you know when it's your turn.
Representative Greenberg.
We're up to G. Lindsay?
Yes.
Representative Healy.
Yes, got it.
Healy votes yes.
Representative Henschel.
Representative Henschel votes yes.
Representative Hines.
Representative Hines votes yes.
Representative Ingraham.
Yes.
Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Maresca.
Yes.
Representative Preet.
Yes.
Representative Shrestha.
Yes.
Representative Sires.
No.
Representative Stepanik.
Yes.
Representative Sullivan.
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli.
Yes.
Representative Toohill.
No.
Representative Verderam.
Yes.
Representative Witkowski.
Yes.
And Representative Wells.
No.
So if I'm correct, we have 23 yes and 3 no. Does that match you?
4 no.
4 no.
4 no.
4
Okay,
no.
the
Thank
item
you.
carries, the item passes. Moving on to item 5, to consider and if appropriate approve the following transfer requests to support changing capital project needs in the sewer reserve fund. Transfers to close out projects and fund improvements at the plant. The following transfer identifies unexpended balances from projects within the sewer reserve fund to finance new and existing projects at the plant. Fund 713, sewer reserve fund, from septic receiving facility, $100,000, to new generator, WPC facility, $342,000, garage expansion, $776,000, gravity belt tightener, $299,866, for a total of $1,507,866. 2, D-Box 2-slide gate replacement, $28,866. 2, replace variable drive plant, $135,000. 2, upgrade of control and data system, $205,000. To replace UV light disinfection system, $900,000. And to blowers and secondary WPC facility for a total of $239,000, for a total of $1,507,866. Transfers to closeout projects and transfer balances to the sewer reserve fund. The following transfer identifies unexpected balances from the project within the 700 fund. These balances will be transferred to the sewer reserve fund to finance future needs and limit the amount of future debt issued for the plant and collection system. Fund 700, capital fund, from Force Main Johnson's Point, $100,000. From septic receiving facility, $140,000. From Wonderware and PC upgrades, $951,000. To Homa mixer with $15,000. To EMU mixer, $8,550. To new camera and tractor, $774. To SW-C grid classifier, $86,650, for a total of $351,925. 2, transfer out sewer reserve fund for a total of $351,925. Representative Healy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Whereas Ways and Means met this last Wednesday on the 6th, this was not on our agenda, but as everybody can see, it's basically moving those funds around for those new and existing projects. So I'd like to put a motion that we waive Rule 4.4.1.
Second.
Motion on the floor to waive Rule 441 has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Rule 441 has been waived. Do I entertain a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Representative Priest, motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Representative Healy. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Henschel.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, through you, just a question. It has been pointed out, and I'm just asking if it's correct, that the last 2 digits of each one of these accounts represents the year that was originally.
Ray, are they using the microphone?
He is now.
All right.
Okay.
I'll just, this is a general question for whoever might be able to answer it. The last 2 digits of each one of these accounts, I believe, indicates the year that those were originally appropriated. And
Representative Cosgrove. Selectman Cosgrove?
First 2 of the last 5.
First.
So where it says 16/3/09, fiscal year 16.
so 16.
You're close.
It
was in there somewhere.
Renee, you got it.
Okay.
So the first set of digits is your account. And then where you see the next 5 digits, those first 2 digits are the fiscal year of which it was.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I'd just like to also point out that this, I believe, is just following the ordinance that we passed last year to try to clean up these accounts and move them forward, which is a good
I
thing.
realize people can't receive it.
Claire, the system is not set up to be able for you to hear everything. I'm sorry.
Any further
They are
discussion?
using the microphone.
Any further discussion from members of the RTM? From the public? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The item passed.
Representative Black votes yes.
Well, good for you, Representative Black. Item 6, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer request from Parks and Open Space budget. From other supplies, $3,000. Capital outlay improvements, $4,000, for a total of $7,000. To purchase services repair, $7,000. Representative Healy.
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. Yes, Ways and Means met, and we did hear this item on last Wednesday, the 6th, and as you see, it's transferring for Rich Shanahan there into working on fixing some of the bridges and things in the parks in the area there. So I put this passed in committee 5-0, and I put this passage in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The item carries.
Any oppositions on the phone?
Yeah.
Very good.
No. Moving on to item 7, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfer request from the Human Services of Branford Counseling. From wages and salaries, $12,000. To seasonal part-time help, $9,000. To uniforms and clothing, $2,000. To miscellaneous, $1,000, for a total of $12,000. Representative Verderem.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This item is an intra-year, intra-budget transfer within the Human Services Department budget. The transfer of $9,000 that you see from wages and salaries to the seasonal part-time help is due to our Human Resources Department's criteria that our contractors follow specific IRS guidelines. One contractor did not meet these guidelines, so we are now required to pay them as a part-time employee, which explains that transfer. The transfer of $2,000 from wages and salaries to the uniforms and clothing is for newly branded Branford Counseling Center apparel, and the Counseling Center hopes that this will help increase their awareness of their facility throughout our community. And lastly, the request to transfer $1,000 from wages and salaries to miscellaneous is due to a cost overrun from meeting a specific client / one of our own taxpayers' needs. Mr. Moderator, this item passed the committee with a unanimous vote, and I move its favorable passage. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Item passes. Moving on to item 8, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following transfers for Public Works. From wages and salaries, $38,015. To overtime, $47,315. To professional development, $700, for a total of $48,015. Representative Conklin.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This also is an intra-year, intra-department transfer, as in virtually every department in town, and every store in town, and every restaurant in town. There's a staffing issue, and so therefore, if you have a staffing issue, you fill the hours with overtime, and this is a transfer from regular wages and salaries to overtime, and also a $700 amount out of that for physicals, which we are now required to cover by way of the new contract with the public works workers. We passed this on April 7th, 5-0, and I put that in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from member of the RTM? Representative Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I rise in opposition to this transfer of $48,000 from regular wages to overtime. Every budget year for the past 5 or 6 years, the administration has approved a budget with $100,000 plus salary for a public works director. Every year, we are asked to make transfers out of the regular wages slush fund to other accounts, and this is mostly because we don't have a full-time public works director. So for 5 or 6 years, that is $500,000 or $600,000 of taxpayer money paid by citizens for a position that doesn't exist. So here we are again with a surplus in wages line item at the end of the year, asked to transfer to overtime for workers. We've been told that paying overtime was the solution instead of hiring part-time workers, but I have to believe that it costs the town more to pay overtime than to pay part-time staff, who likely wouldn't have benefits. And I know someone will say that they're having trouble filling these positions for part-time work. Well, I haven't actually seen any positions posted on the town website in the past few months for part-time work in Public Works. And in fact, there's only a seasonal labor position posted right now. So how hard is the department working to fill these positions? And if we're covering transfer station hours, which is also mentioned in the justification, shouldn't the transfer money come from wages or overtime from the solid waste and recycling department and not from the wages of the Public Works? Others may say that it's overtime to cover unexpected snow events. I could be okay with that. Snow is unpredictable and adds up to a lot of hours. But we're also being asked to justify overtime for the festival, fireworks, Easter cleanup. These aren't unknown events. How can the budget not have accounted for staffing these events when we originally created the budget? I suspect it's related to only having an interim public works director for 5+ years who isn't able to direct the appropriate amount of time to staffing, long-range planning, and budgeting as a full-time director for the department would be doing. So I'm opposed to this transfer, which seems to be a result of poor planning, and ask that my colleagues on this body join me in rejecting the transfer. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anyone else wishing to speak to this item?
More than happy.
Selectman Cosgrove, go right ahead.
Was that a question?
Just to be clear, I don't know if that was a committee that Representative Sullivan was on or was at the meeting, but certainly was not an accurate representation for the request. In terms of I'll just go down a few of the bullet points, and there's probably more, but I'll just hit. In terms of staffing levels, we had some number of employees out. We had vacancies. These all, beyond the Public Works Director position that you're referring to, these are all create a surplus in the account. As far as poor planning, no, it was always known that we have those events to cover for overtime, and actually the budget that this body approves every year lists those events as items to cover for overtime. However, when you have a number of storms prior to those events taking place, and you utilize your overtime to address those storm events, or when you have a number of employees who are either out due to illness, isolation, quarantine restrictions because of the pandemic, or just people retiring, and we want to continue to get work done for the taxpayers of Branford, for the people who request that. So rather than pushing work down the road and not getting it done and not addressing it on schedule as they've done, I think the Public Works has done a tremendous job in giving them and coming in additional hours to cover those shortages within the departments. You speak of the part-time employees. Why do we not have? No. Yes, it would be cheaper, less expensive, or costly to hire part-time employees. We had no last year. Now keep in mind, we post for those over the summer events. That's where traditionally we'll bring in some part-time. It's not unique to this department. It's not unique to the town. It's not, I think across many industries, you are seeing a shortage of labor. We could not fill those spots. So that, once again, to ensure that the mowing got taken place, the maintenance of our roads, the cleaning of our sidewalks takes place, and other things that need to be done. Yes, our crew, our Public Works crew, committed their time, and they deserve to be justly compensated through overtime for committing their time to getting the job done. So I commend the Public Works Department, the supervisor overseeing the work that they've done, because that is why this request is before you. And again, I hope that's clear. If there's any other questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Representative Amori?
I have a question. Selectman Cosgrove, you're saying that this $48,000 is not coming from the approved salary for the director. It's coming just from unspent funds in regular wages.
As you know, when this body approves the budget for those departments, it's salary and wages. So it's all one, and yes, we do fund that position within that. So in terms of, specifically which position, that's not how the account works. There's one salary and wage account for the department. I will just also add, many times prior to this vacancy, the department would come forward, as other departments need to, and request coverage for overtime. If in fact, even when the department was fully staffed, over the years, and I know a number of you have been here a number of years, when it was fully staffed, and where would those dollars come from? They would be requested out of contingency. So this request to cover overtime has happened in the past, and it's in this case we're taking it out of its existing out of the department within the existing funds. You'll see that with the fire department. I think last month they came forward for a transfer, and because of staffing levels, they had to cover their transfer into overtime. Where did they take it? Regular wages and salaries, with this body approved.
I have a follow-up question for you.
Go ahead, Representative Moore.
It is correct that roughly $100,000 salary has been in and taxed for the last 5 years. Mr. Selectman, would you agree that if we had a leader in that department, that there might be a better chance of recruiting full-time staff, of planning work better? I mean, I don't understand why 5 years in a row we haven't been able to fill that position.
Well, every budget I explain why we're continuing to fund it, but I want to address your comment because it's a little bit misleading. We do have a leader within that department. And actually, to be quite honest, I'm going to go on the record, this is probably one of the strongest leaders we've had in that department in a number of years. Okay? So to say we do not have a leader, I think is a misleading or just a wrong statement, to be honest with you. From my observation, from the work that's been getting done in town, we have great leadership within the department. So it's not a matter of lack of leadership.
Well, he may be a person that leads, but the position of, why doesn't he have the position of leader? Why aren't we?
Because I've said many times, and is that we are looking at, and a lot of it has to do with the, in terms of the current labor bargaining units and what we're doing. And also, we didn't want to bind ourselves with a certain structure, and I wanted to keep that position, and that individual who's filling that position, this is something that's also been stated to this body every time we go through this process, and I'm sure it'll come up again next month. Yes, this individual receives additional compensation for those additional duties, for those, which is taken out of salaries and wages.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Representative Sullivan?
A follow-up. So in your commentary, you mentioned there's other vacancies in the department.
Correct.
But there's nothing listed on the website recruiting those positions currently, correct?
Throughout the, we're in...
Right now, today.
There is...
I said it in my comments if you need a tip. It's the summer laborer position is posted right now, which is an 18-hour job for the summer season only.
That's not...
But that's not the vacancies that you're saying is creating the gap in the wages for salaries, correct?
Over the years, no, that's part-time, the part-time. There are vacancies within the department, correct, yeah, and there's a current vacancy.
But they're not posted for hire
There are
right
two.
now.
One is, no, they posted one, no.
Thank you, that's all I need.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak?
And I think it's also important to recognize that, this body, and again, I respect everybody's time and commitment as a legislative body, but you're not the administrative body of the town. So in terms of making some changes and doing it, that happens with town hall, with the administration. So I certainly commend this department, this body for your volunteerism, your many hours of service to the town. I'm more than happy and I've offered this many times, to speak to any of you at any time if you have any questions regarding these issues that need to be, you want addressed. And I think we can have a greater discussion and regarding it rather than, here on the floor. But I'm happy to sit here all night and answer this.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman. Anybody else from the RTM wishing to speak? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion to approve this transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right, so let's do a show of hands, just so we're clarification. All in favor of this motion, show of hands?
Do I have to write this down?
No, I just want to make sure that. Yeah, okay. All the noes. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 9. To consider and if appropriate, approve a transfer request from the first selectman for the Branford Cable TV budget as follows. From subcontracting, $3,500 to seasonal part-time help, $3,500. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ways and Means met, and we did discuss this. It's basically Henry, as we all know, helping us out here, is by definition, he's more of a town employee than a subcontractor. So this is just a transfer acknowledging such. And this passed in committee 5-0, and I put its passage in the form of a motion that I hope goes through. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Brooks.
It's not really about the transfer, but it's about the subject. Is this being televised live?
Yeah.
So tell Claire to hear it, she can watch it on TV.
3 minutes behind.
Oh.
There's a time delay, Representative.
I should have said, yeah, but.
Any further comments, members from the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Moving on to item 10. To consider and if appropriate, approve a transfer request from the first selectman for public celebration budget as follows. From the contingency, $11,829 to equipment rental, $11,929. Representative Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, again, Ways and Means did hear this from our first selectman, Jamie Cosgrove, that basically the main stage that we use for the events of like the festival and whatnot, it's falling apart and in desperate need of getting a new one. But this year is going to be a yearly rental for us for just this year. What's nice about this is that they cover it themselves. The company that we're renting this from, they will put it up for us, they take it down, and that also saves us money on having the Department of Public Works doing it. So this passed in committee 5-0, and I put that in the form of a motion. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer. Any discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Moving on to item 11, to consider and appropriate approval request from the Board of Education for capital projects redesignation from the fiscal year 2021-2022. We got dugout slash press box softball from $10,198.19 to system-wide door replacement, $10,198.19. And we got elevator upgrades, $15,312. Bathroom renovations, $46,516 to $61,828. And we got Branford High School cafeteria improvements, $120,000. And 2 JBS architectural study, $50,000. MTM tile replacement, $20,000. MRT tile replacement, $20,000. Remove abandoned underground storage tanks, $30,000, for a total of $192,026.19. Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Education Subcommittee met on April 4th to hear this item. These are just normal end of budget year scrub of capital projects and the redesignation of the unused funds. The committee voted 6-0 to approve, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to approve this item. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Brooks.
I wasn't there. I listened to it on a telephone because I was somewhere else. But I don't remember hearing the vote. So, and just, I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just want to clarify, it did happen?
Yes.
Okay. I don't remember hearing it, and I was a little shocked by this, but clearly I was, you know, going over the George Washington Bridge at that point. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Brooks, you know, might have been a time delay going over the Q Bridge. Representative Emerson?
Yes. I just wanted to make a comment about the bathroom renovations. I happened to read online today the Branford Buzz, and the bathrooms are apparently locked quite often. Not all of them, but if we're improving the bathrooms and they're locked, why are we spending the money? The superintendent's not here, but it's kind of like, honestly.
Through you, Mr. Moderator.
Representative Preet, go ahead.
And this is speculation, Representative Riverson. I was at the high school play last month or a couple of weeks ago, and I did use the men's room on the first floor. Everything in there is pretty much broke. My understanding is that they have ongoing issues with the student body destroying the bathrooms, because one of the questions at the subcommittee was, you know, we see this bathroom renovation kind of like yearly coming through, and the issue, and again, I don't want to speak for the superintendent, but the issue is that there's an ongoing issue with the students destroying the bathrooms. So, you know, as far as them being locked, that's a Board of Education issue. You know, you have to take it up with them, but I know there are a lot of problems going on at the schools with destruction.
Representative Abraham?
Yeah, I'd like to add to I saw the posts on Branford Buzz today. I was a bit disheartened because there was some commentary, and we have to watch what we see on social media, is that there was commentary talking about what the kids have done to the bathrooms that was deleted. I'm not sure who runs Branford. I think Branford Buzz is part of like the school newspaper. So, you know, so we do have to watch what we hear there. I did note it, did say, I gotta ask a question at, you know, next time I'm at one of those meetings that, you know, what's going on that we have bathrooms destroyed. But then again, I'll think back to my high school years, and I pretty much tried to stay out of those rooms.
If you gotta go, you gotta go.
Well, I mean, that's what I said. I tried to stay out.
What are the kids doing?
Well, they have bathrooms open.
The bathrooms. Cameras in it, so.
They're probably going to the ones they can watch. But it's a definite, you know, question that we should be asking at the BOE meeting.
I'd like to just make a comment, Ray.
Well, you're too close to it. No,
Ray?
I'm not. I'll let the moderator let me speak.
All right, Representative Torelli, you want to speak to this?
Go ahead, Claire.
Claire, go ahead.
Being that I work in the building, there are cameras that are on the doors, but once the kids have destroyed the interior of the bathroom, it's really difficult to catch them. And unfortunately, when we do catch them, I think the kids should pay for it, and they don't. So my pet peeve is, if you're going to make these big, beautiful bathrooms, you better get some type of punishment for these kids, or some kind of security that stops them from destroying them again, because that's not going to stop them by putting new bathrooms in there. You can't put cameras in them.
I do remember my days at Lee
You
High
know,
School.
you got to resolve the problem here. I can see putting money into modernizing them and making it.
Yeah.
So you go in the bathroom?
In the special
ID.
prisons. Okay.
I know for a fact that Representative Torelli has been called upon numerous times to go into the bathroom to straighten the situation out. The sewer, you know, resource people there don't seem to want to get involved. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anyone from the public? Anyone? Okay, that All those we'll take a vote. All those in favor of this transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Moving on to item 12, to consider and if appropriate, approve the following 2021-2022 closeout and consolidation transfers from the Finance Director. Project closeouts. From Hickory Hill Drainage, DWPW, $2,233. From Quickview Pole Camera, DPW, $1,250. From Supply Pond Repairs and Improvements, $66. Fire Department Hydraulic Tools, $1,476. Fire Department Cardiac Monitors, $669. Fire Department Cardiac Monitors, $1,397. Speed Detection Devices, Police for $18 for a total of $7,109. 2, transfer out to General Fund, $7,109. Moving on to project consolidations from seawall repairs and docks and recreation, $10,362 to seawall repairs DPW, $10,362. Representative Conklin,
Mr. Moderator, just an interruption, I meant to say that before. Representative Black left at 8:36.
Oh, thank you.
He's heading on his spring break.
Okay. Representative Conklin, we know you heard the lower portion of the 10,000. We'd appreciate if you do the 441 for the top portion so we can clear this off our agenda.
So the Ways and Means did not meet on item number 12. Public Service did meet on 12, part of it. But so I would move that we 441 the top portion so that we can clear this off our agenda.
Second.
Motion on the floor to suspend Rule 441, suspend second. Any discussion with members of the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 441 has been approved.
So the second, I'll do the second portion first, and that was heard on April 7th, and it is taking money out of a 2010 account from Docks and Rec and moving it to a 2022 for Department of Public Works for the same projects. And we voted on that 5-0. And I will just point out that the top portion of item number 12 goes back, some of them, one of them to 2011. There's another for 2017, and it's moving those funds into the general fund as, quite frankly, is pursuant to the ordinance that we passed in the last term. And I would move that we approve all of those transfers. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve. Representative Brooks?
I'll second it, sir. You can tell.
It came out of committee, so it doesn't need a second.
No, the top part did.
Okay, fine.
I only halfway.
Okay, second. To you, Mr. Moderator, to really anybody, because I wasn't here for that vote on the cleaning stuff ordinance situation. But let's use this one for an example, just for clarification so I understand. So this was a 2010 line item, seawall repair, docks and recreation, and we're going to move it to 2022 seawall repairs, all of which I have no problem with. So my question is, and I'm assuming this is going to be the end of it, that after this we don't do this ever again? So does that mean... No, but you're right, it won't, because, so my question goes to, and again, just so I know, this is just information. So if we don't do the seawall repairs, because I'm looking right at it as the 2022 budget line item now, but let's say we don't do them because we don't have a seawall that needs repairing for that amount of money. Will we then vote and move it to 2023?
No.
In a couple of years, we could. If they don't use those funds, it's really 3 years.
It's 3 years.
It's the year.
That's the ordinance.
Yes.
That's it. That's all I need to know. 3 years.
It's the ordinance plus The ordinance, yeah, it's a year plus 2.
I just wanna, so, you know, as we go through these processes, I can keep these things in my head.
And Representative Brooks, just to be clear, we're going to do a lot of this in the first year until all the departments get up to speed, and then it will happen a little more normally.
Just wanted to, I just, you know, so it's in my head now, each year I notice.
Okay, any other discussion from members of the RTM? Hearing none, all those in favor of the transfers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item passes. Okay, moving on to item 13, to consider and if appropriate, approve the Board of Finance's recommended fiscal 22 ARPA fund appropriations and resolution from TBD ARPA fund 380,000 to IT sand storage device 160,000 to Recreation Department showmobile, not a snowmobile, showmobile, 220,000 for a total of 380,000. Representative Healy, resolved that the RTM approves of appropriation of 380,000 to the ARPA fund budget for the following fiscal year 2021-2022.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, this ARPA fund, American Rescue Plan Act. So, as you see, we met on this and we approved this 5-0. The transfer of the IT for the tech department for the entire town of Branford. The other part is $220,000 for the showmobile, which it's an interesting stage that we get to move around from place to place. Apparently it's the size is 20 by 40. Other towns have them. They find them very useful for other events that we may be hosting and having. I'm sure they can find things that we probably haven't even used the stage for, but we can with this. It's not coming out of tax dollars, so it wasn't so much of a stretch for us to approve this. We do have pictures for anybody who wants to see, yes, this showmobile. But again, the transfer passed in committee, 5-0, and I put it in the form of a motion that we push forward with it this evening. Thank you.
Motion on the floor to approve this transfer resolution. Any discussion from members of the RTM?
Yes.
Representative Rivers?
Thank you. This is the first American Rescue Plan Act funding allocation to be considered in Branford. Town was granted $8.2 million under this plan, and of June of 2021 last year received $4.1 million of that allocation. Before us tonight is this first allocation. The first selectman and the finance director. The first, can you hear me?
Speak up a little bit. I
Oh.
don't know if anybody over there can hear.
You can sit down.
We can hear.
No,
I meant on
I didn't yell yet.
Yeah, you don't have to.
Oh.
You can sit down. You don't have to stand up.
Okay.
Just pull the mic closer to you.
The first selectman and the finance director put the list together, and the Board of Finance has agreed. What I object to is the lack of an open and transparent process of determining how these funds are to be spent. The initial getting to the Board of Finance. Other communities have been much more forthcoming on how these multi-million-dollar decisions are being made and by whom. There have been public meetings, public hearings, surveys, or workshops. Middletown has an ARPA task force. Bethel has set aside $2 million for 70 local businesses to apply for up to $5,000 in relief funding each. Norwalk has set up a community recovery fund grant process with $2 million set aside for nonprofits. Westport is putting money toward affordable housing. The common element in these communities is focusing on people and businesses that are distressed and struggling to hang on as we emerge from the pandemic. More allocations have been approved by the Board of Finance but have yet to be considered by the RTM. Still to come, Branford has earmarked $100,000 of ARPA money for basic needs through the Branford Counseling Center, often the first line of outreach help that our residents have come to rely on. The fire department will be getting a new ambulance, which will benefit our residents directly. That's great. But other ARPA funds put forward and approved by the Board of Finance include $5.5 million for sidewalks. Perhaps you can argue that a lot more people were out walking and have been walking. We certainly know for years there have been pleas for additional sidewalks in town. That may not leave much left. Other communities are sharing ARPA funds with food banks, community-based organizations for foreclosure rental assistance, a much more direct human benefit in what continues to be a challenging financial time for many. This federal funding is specifically designed to be used to assist those most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The administration has said that in time, Branford intends to look at sharing more of these resources, and additional allocations will be coming to the Board of Finance and to the RTM. I would urge the residents and organizations to make their voices heard now. Otherwise, this unique funding opportunity may be lost. I hope that more careful consideration be made with future allocations of ARPA funding. I will be voting no on this item. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Selectman Cosgrove?
Just for a couple of points of clarification, first of all, I certainly object to the characterizing this as a lack of transparency. One of the things when we first initially found out that we would be receiving money through the ARPA fund is we said we would follow the same process that we follow for our budget. I think our budget is a very transparent process. There are public meetings, there's agendas posted, it goes to the Board of Finance, then it comes to this body where it gives opportunity to be discussed in a committee to hear more about it, and then presented to which at every meeting the public has an opportunity to comment what is before them and what is being considered. And then it comes to the full body, as you know, for a vote by the RTM, the representative town meeting, the representatives of the community. So I think it is a transparent process. To be clear, yes, we received money back, I believe it was in June this last year. However, it's important to note that the final rule on how these dollars could be spent was not issued until January 7th of this year. January 7th of this year. We wanted to be sure that we were very prudent in how we were allocating these dollars and utilizing them. Yes, other communities have, and again, I sit on various boards and commissions, and often this topic comes up, how dollars are being utilized. And again, every community is following a different process. And what we decided here in Branford is to follow a process that both the appropriating bodies as well as the community is used to. And that's why we chose to follow the process which follows the Board of Finance RTM process. I have more comments that I'm sure the moderator will get to. In terms of how the dollars will be utilized, and I think it may have been, you may have misspoke. You said $5.5 million. It wasn't $5.5 million for sidewalks. For a point of clarification, it was $550,000 for a number of sidewalk projects throughout town to improve connectivity throughout town. With that said, you spoke of the business community as well as the human need. Back when we first found out about this, approximately a year ago, a little shy of a year ago, the town of Branford, and I always stated that we would utilize these dollars to address human needs, the needs within our community, to help the vulnerable populations. The $100,000 that is going to the basic needs, that is in addition to what the town of Branford already contributes through the general fund, $58,000 in the current budget. And one thing I think it's important to note, we've been clear that we don't want to create a cliff. Yes, I've seen other communities, they're putting money into these other areas and they're going to address certain needs, but there's no plan to sustain that beyond the ARPA dollars. We're creating a glide path through the basic needs. We're giving an infusion of $100,000 if this body approves of it, to infuse that extra dollar into addressing the basic needs. Some of those needs that we address are exactly what Representative Everson mentioned. And that is done through, which, you know, Branford, many municipalities do not have the Branford Counseling Center as we do here in Branford. Many municipalities don't already support a number of nonprofits and service providers like Branford does. Through our Branford Counseling Center, through our senior center, through our animal shelter. Those are just some town departments. But as you know, there's a number of service providers in this community who benefit from the support that the municipality gives them, either through in-kind services or buildings that they occupy for so they can carry out their mission. And we provide the building and also cover oftentimes a lot of expenses associated with that, so the service providers. So I think Branford does a tremendous job in addressing the basic needs. And we are looking at this as an opportunity to increase what we can do. But before, you know, basic needs, and this came up in the committee, is a very broad term. Well, we have to address basic needs. But first you have to put, what is it that you want to address? What is it the responsibility of local government to address? I mean, I think federal government has a responsibility. I certainly think our state government has a responsibility and to address a lot of needs. And what is our responsibility? And we have to define that responsibility and in that need. And we're going to address it. And that's where we are. This is the first, as we said, what is before you today, and what came before you, and what will be before you next month when you adopt the budget, were just items that were really associated with town departments. Because we wanted to go through this process, the first request of using ARPA dollars that was identified as through our department heads, in terms of what the need is out there that fall under, that can be addressed utilizing these dollars, and then have those presentations made through a very public process, the Board of Finance and RTM. Thank you.
Okay, Representative, we'll go with Representative Sullivan first, and then Moore and Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just want to rise and speak for some clarification on it. I think that what Representative Everson was speaking to is the ability for the public to be part of the process of what the items are that come to the bodies through this process that you detailed, right? So when we get an item on our agenda and vote for it, Joe Sixpack down the street didn't have any say in getting that on our agenda, right? That came from Town Hall only. So there's no voice of the public determining that the ARPA funds are going for the showmobile. I'm not opposed to the showmobile, it's just the item in front of me, right? But I think what Representative Everson, was speaking to is making sure that we could have more of an open process of determining what the items that we get to vote on are, not that the process of going to the Board of Finance and the subcommittees isn't transparent, because that's what we do for our budgets. People come to those sometimes. I think that we probably could do a better job with maybe doing some sort of public hearings or a charrette or something where people come and say, I'd love to see some of this money spent on the supply ponds, or I don't know what it's going to be, but some sort of public opportunity to help determine the items that come to the Board of Finance and come to the RTM to vote on. So that's all I'll say to it. Thank you.
Representative Maury?
Yes, I mean, my question was, when you say we, I'm thinking, well, I'm hoping he's not using it as the royal we, because I want to know who is we that made the decisions to do this. And you just clarified it by saying it was the town hall departments. There seems to be a resistance lately, over a number of years, to planning, to bringing in people besides people in the town departments, to seeking input, to using it as an opportunity. I understand what you're saying about creating a glide path and not wanting to create cliffs, and that's wise. I would not say that, not say otherwise. What I would say is that this is an opportunity, Mr. Selectman, to actually hear from the various sectors who are providing the services on the ground, not just town departments, the nonprofit sectors, the business sectors, the education sectors. It's an opportunity for you to learn, if nothing else. And I think it's a good, it could be a very valid process where you're actually engaging with people. These are worthy. I have no opposition to these projects. They're worthy. But I would like to see this $5 million or so that's left be utilized. And I agree with Representative Sullivan. Once it gets here, it's open. Okay, the discussion is there. But use this next $5 million as an opportunity to engage sectors of this town in a discussion so that there are some things that we all learn about what is needed. Thank you.
Selectman Cosgrove? Any comments on that, or you just want to go ahead?
No, I'm more than, I don't know if there's any other comments. I'll be more than happy to address that.
Representative Henschel?
I thought, yeah, Representative Henschel.
I was just going to essentially repeat, I think that Representative Sullivan and Representative Amori have stated quite well the points that I'd like to make, but I think that having a forum for some public input before decisions are made on the remaining $5 million and change would be definitely to the benefit of the town.
Any other discussions from members of the RTM?
Yeah, I want to address it because again, maybe it's, I think what's important to note, and I think Representative Amore did acknowledge the fact that, as I stated, this initial request that came forward was were items that were identified through the various departments that are requesting these dollars. And these departments are all departments that serve the community. So the fact that, you know, when these did not just come from, they weren't unilateral decisions. They were requests that came in from, as I said, from staff departments that identified various project or need that exist within our community. And as far as the public discussion, this is the forum. So, please, this is the forum for a public discussion. I hear what you're saying in terms of you want to have a public discussion prior to anything even being requested. And then and again, I think some communities may have followed that. I said every community is doing something different. The first request was really from, as I said, departments that have identified what the needs are. As far as the outreach to the community, we've had discussions, and I said requests will be coming forward. You said the business community. Well, the chamber has been involved, and through there, and they have a program, and you may be aware that they've been going to other communities and making presentations, and they will come here and make a presentation on how they can address some needs within the business community. As far as the need for the human need, and as I said, we're fortunate here in Branford where we have the Branford Counseling Center, which has a pretty good finger on the pulse of what is needed out there in the community. As I said, I mentioned other departments here that we are fortunate that are quite actively involved in meeting needs. Okay, so we have had those discussions, but I've had discussions with the Branford Community Foundation, all right, to see what is the need that they're seeing. What are the requests that they're having? What in terms of to directly address what was those impacted through the pandemic? All right, so those discussions have been going on. I've had a discussion with the Volunteer Service Center. Executive Director serves on this, Representative Barron. in terms of, is there a way we can utilize these dollars to address the need of the Volunteer Service Center, which consists of 4 organizations under one umbrella? Have those discussions have been taking place? So to say that we haven't done the outreach or haven't engaged is not an accurate statement by any stretch of it. And other will be coming forward. And again, just like any time we appropriate dollars, there is a public process, and it's not determined in town hall how dollars are spent. And quite honestly, this is a grant fund, unrestricted grant fund that comes to town hall. We decided not to go that process, where we decided to go through the transparent public process of these meetings, to give everybody an opportunity to see it on TV, to attend a meeting, to engage their representatives.
Representative Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just need to make a couple more clarifications. I'm not questioning that having it go to the Board of Finance and through the RTM isn't transparent. My concern is that the public, and you've said a lot of top-down sort of organizational giving feedback, but again, somebody in our town, one citizen, hasn't had a chance to, write a letter or come to a public meeting and speak to that. So I'm wondering, and through you, Mr. Roderick, are you opposed to having some sort of public charrette or event where people could come to the firehouse and speak to how they would see these dollars spent in our community?
To see how these dollars are spent?
Yeah.
I think they're seeing how these dollars are spent or through this
That's not the question.
You just said, can they come and see how these dollars are spent?
To decide how the dollars are spent,
Listen.
what projects they're going to be spent on, as recommendations,
So
what
we
they would
can
like to
do
see.
the same, you want, just so I'm understanding you, what you want the process. Showmobile, you want a public hearing on the showmobile.
No.
Then,
That's not correct.
what do you?
I would like to see a public event, blank slate. The town has ARPA funds. People come in, maybe we give them treats like we have here tonight, and they can say, I would like to see some of those dollars spent on, I don't know what it is, but the public could make a list of those items, and then we could determine what things move forward from there.
It'd be like a game show. Yeah.
A survey.
All right, but I will say, to have an event that you're such describing, again, I guess we're going to have to disagree on this. I do think, again, unless you think this body's just isn't part of the process in terms of determining how these dollars are spent. I think this body is a very important part of the process, and I made it a very important process. I will say, to that point, on how dollars are utilized, and again, we did do, reached out, and you're saying that's top down in terms of who are providing the services. No, these are organizations and individuals who are very connected to the community and the need in the community. I think that's important to, I don't think to describe these, whether it's the Branford Community Foundation, the Volunteer Service Center, or a town department as if they're so far removed or disconnected from the community that in addressing the need that they need to address. The one thing I will say though, when we were actually surprised, I will say, I was surprised that there was a lot more discussion in terms of, or things identified. And one of the things very early on we said, and this was a decision in terms of coming forward and utilizing ARPA dollars through this budget process, was to to showcase and make people aware of how these dollars are going to be utilized. So I think we're going through a pretty sound process. I think we're going to continue to engage those that we feel and try to utilize these dollars as intended. And again, that's the process we've laid out. I think again, if there's an organization or somebody that has an idea, but this is, again, we're going through a very public process, and I've identified how other towns, or researched how other towns, and I think quite honest with you, this is a very thorough process.
If I could just make a
All right. Representative Henschel?
Yeah, I think that the point that Representative Sullivan is trying to make somehow hasn't been received, because every 10 years we have a get-together in the town and we have a review of our plan of conservation and development. It's a major step for the town to establish that plan, and that plan is not established by coming to the public with a predefined plan that the town hall would like to see, or people in a few organizations would like to see. It's an open forum. It started out, it was done very well, I thought, the last round a couple of years ago. It was moderated and guided by professionals, so that there was some semblance of order and some way of collecting information and packaging it into a useful form. But it was as Chris said, an open slate to start with. And it was well done, and a lot of things that happened were put into that plan of conservation and development directly came out of that process, rather than the planning department presenting a plan to the town of development and just getting an okay through a public feedback. There's a big difference, and I think that again, what Chris and what Representative Sullivan and Representative Amori are really trying to say is that there's enough money here, and this is an opportunity for the town to address some of the things that aren't normally thought of, brought up, etc., and have them brought to our attention and considered, rather than just being reactive. I would hate to think that we're going to see $8 million brought to the RTM already with designations of where everything is going to be spent, and we just have to react and say yes or no. And I don't think that the RTM is probably the best body to sit down and have this forum or this discussion, even though we do represent our constituents. I do believe that some form of a public forum, maybe it's just singular, but where the public is aware of the fact that this question is being asked, how do we spend this money that we have, which could be of great benefit to the town, and give them an opportunity to come forth and put those ideas out. Whether they're picked up and how they're assembled or packaged would go back to the administration, I think, to put into a workable form and make decisions on and take back to the RTM and the Board of Finance for approval. But getting that input before decisions are made is the point.
Okay, I just quickly to respond to that, because actually I think there is a big difference between the process that you're laying out and what you're trying to have. What is not considered in the plan of conservation and development? There is a lot of engagement, as you said, then you create this document. But what was never contemplated when they developed that plan of conservation and development, and everything is put in that document? The cost of all of it. Who's paying for it? There's not dollars. We're talking about a very defined number of dollars. So to make that analogy, we should be following the process when there's basically you're engaged. Yes, that is, and that document serves a purpose. But I think, to say that is the same process, because at the end, the way you said, then you got to try to sort it all out and try to package it within a very, it sounds like there's a lot of dollars there, but a very defined set of dollars. The plan of conservation and development, that document is what is never discussed when that is put together or contemplated in terms of before recommendations are accepted, are the costs.
Representative Ingraham?
I like the process that we use our expert agencies, our commissions, our boards and commissions, our volunteer agencies, which is we've heard that have been engaged. I mean, several of them have called me. I don't know how many other members have been called about the ARPA dollars and whether put a good word in. The last thing I'd want is a process that has, whoever has the most people in the room gets the most say. Whoever gets the most people to come and speak on an item, who's the most eloquent. And that's a process, where we invite a large group of people into a room. That's what happens. We have it happen here. If there's something to go on that a certain group of people wants to have happen, this room is full. And we're elected to sort that out. I'm good with sorting out the process after, the Branford Counseling, all of our charitable agencies in town, they're really the experts on telling us what we need especially on social needs. And that's where it needs to come from. We do have, almost every department has a board or commission that has public meetings. And they can come up with more of what they think they need and have it discussed. I mean, I think Public Works is the only one that doesn't have a board or commission that has public meetings every month. So I feel the process to date has been open enough for me to make votes.
Mr. Moderator?
All right. Representative Emerson?
Thank you. I think the point is, Mr. Cosgrove has said, my door is always open. That's great. So if somebody hearing this, watching this RTM meeting, is hearing this discussion and saying, you know what, I do have something to say, can they call you? Can they walk into your office and have a discussion? Will they be heard, or are you only listening to the department heads and whoever has your ear?
I think I thought I was, I guess I was not clear when I said, when we were doing this first round of utilizing the ARPA dollars, perhaps it would spark something. And I did say my door is always open. And I don't know, I can't think of one individual I refused over my 9 years that I would not meet with and discuss any issues. So yes, my door is open. My phone number is available. I often will speak to residents on, when it's convenient for them, or in the evenings or weekends. So yes, that holds true for any issue.
Thank
All right,
you.
Representative Moore, last comment on this.
To Representative Ingraham, through you.
Yep.
I would not advocate for a wide open public meeting. There are lots of ways to get feedback into this process, that is by a survey, by a form that you put in the sound, people to contribute ideas. You can do it lots of different ways. I think it's a learning process for the town, for people outside. You don't have to have a free-for-all, and you don't have to know exactly how much it's going to cost. You take the temperature of what the town thinks is important, and I think that this is an opportunity to do that. There's a disconnect here. I think we can say planning and feedback over and over again. I don't think anybody's going to hear it, so that's all I have to say.
I think we do a pretty good job of taking the temperature.
Apparently, yes.
Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this item. You heard the motion that's on the floor. All those in favor of the appropriation and resolution signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those against?
No.
Abstentions? Okay, this resolution passes. Moving on to item 14, to consider and if appropriate, consider changing the position of the Branford tax collector from an elected official to a hired appointment. The committee did not meet on this, so I would entertain a motion to re-refer this item.
I'll make that motion.
Represented by Representative Ingham. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Henschel. Any discussion on re-referring the item? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is re-referred. Item 15, any other business to come before the RTM? Hearing none. We're moving on to item 16, adjournment. Is Representative Torelli still on?
No, she adjourned at 9:14.
She went to bed, okay. So do I entertain a motion to adjourn? Second by Representative Amore. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.